Good evening, everyone. My name is Heather Nickerson. I'm co-founder and CEO of Artifcts, and we're thrilled to welcome you tonight to our Evenings with Artifacts. I'm joined with my co-founder, Ellen Goodwin, and also our guests tonight, Mary Kay Buysse and Jennifer Pickett, both co-executive directors of NASM. Mary Kay guides membership recruitment, retention, education, and program development for NASM. She has a Master's of Science degree in gerontology, and she's worked in the nonprofit association sector for aging services for over 25 years. Jennifer, meanwhile, guides development, marketing, and promotion of NASM products, programs, and services. She also oversees NASM's creative work. Jennifer has worked in Aging Services Association management for nearly 3 decades, with 35 plus total years of marketing and event planning experience. We are so excited to have them join us tonight for a conversation all about downsizing, moving, simplifying your space, and of course, the elephant in the room, what to do with all your stuff. We look forward to their ideas and their insights into the moving industry. And we're also going to make sure we leave plenty of time at the end for questions and answers from you all. As we go through the conversation, feel free to pop your questions into chat and we'll try to get to them as they pop up. And with that, we'll kick it off with our first questions and welcoming Mary Kay and Jennifer. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, yes.
You both have had very exciting careers with decades of experience in various fields. What attracted you to the downsizing and move management industry? And secondly, why have you stayed?
That's a good question. I'll answer the second part first. We've stayed because it's growing like crazy. And there are very few, in the world today, everything's being marginalized. Everything's on a decline. People are losing their jobs left and right, and entire industries have been obliterated. And move management is on such a growth trajectory. We are not only here, now, but we're here to stay. We want to see this thing through because we have been, really preparing for it since we joined NASM in 2006. So once we, became the staff leadership for NASM in 2006, we knew then, just because of the demographics, you can't outrun the fact that there's 80 million baby boomers who are going to relocate in later life. So that's why we're here. Why I came into this field is because it was new. Jennifer and I had worked in a previous association together, and it was kind of doing the same thing every year.
It was like, do we have 15 years of experience or do we have 1 year of experience 15 times? And, it's a crazy story how we came to manage NASM. I mean, it's, it would take me a half an hour to just probably go through it. But the long and the short of it, right? The long and the short of it is that we worked for another trade association in aging services. And one of the founding members of NASM was also a member. The company she worked for was a member of the association that we worked for. And they approached our boss at the time about perhaps taking on the management of NASM. And so Mary Kay and I were basically instructed to fly to Washington, D.C., meet with with the NASM board of directors, see what their needs were and see how we could fulfill those needs. And, we went out there and, it's kind of funny. I mean, I still laugh about the fact that they had commandeered a meeting room at a hotel in Crystal City, outside of DC, I plan, the conventions for NASM and I have, 35 years of event planning experience, whatever. But, they're like, oh, do you want some chicken salad that they're pulling out of the cooler? That I'm thinking, that came from whatever, Philadelphia. No, that's okay. We're good. But at the end of the day, what they needed was what every trade association needs. They need marketing support. They need membership support. They need meeting support. They need financial support. All of those things we were able to deliver. So they awarded us the contract. They had absolutely no money. And we came back and, they said, yes, we'd like for you to, we would like for you to manage us. And we got 2 boxes of files, one sent to me, one sent to Mary Kay. And the next thing you know, we start giving it a little love, and it was like a genie lantern. And all of a sudden, Mary Kay and I had 2 full-time jobs. And so the decision to take NASM out on its own, with the NASM board support, obviously, it was an easy decision. Was it for Mary Kay and I, crazy career decision? At the time, it was dangerous. It was scary. But looking back 17 years now in July, it was the best thing that we ever did. And we couldn't be happier about our choice, and we could not be prouder of this organization. And, you know, the members that we have, you know, brought in along the way, watching these companies come from basically nothing to $1 million companies, and then meeting, you know, new partners like you guys, which we did, you know, a little less than 2 years ago. So there you go.
Well, we're happy to meet you too. That's a whole nother story, and I've actually artifacted that story. So someday
Okay,
we do artifact the building of our own company, because I think that you guys will understand this very well. You lose the small details. You start looking at the big milestones and things like that, but you forget along the way what you've done. So I want to pivot really quickly. We use NASM acronym, National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers. And we have a really mixed audience here. We do have folks from NASM, as you pointed out, but we have a lot who have never heard of NASM even. So can you just, one of you spend, you know, a minute, give us like the high level before we then dive into some of the nitty gritty details that we're going to enjoy tonight?
well, just in a nutshell, it is the trade association of the senior move management industry. It's really no different than a bar association for attorneys or the American Medical Association for physicians. It's really the same thing, except we support, as Jennifer said, the senior move management industry, and our members are the company. It is not a professional society. So the company is the member, and then of course the owners and all the employees and staff and whatever fall under that. So, and as Jennifer said, what we do is we are not senior move managers. We are association management professionals, and that's our trade. And we belong to the American Society of Association Executives. So we honor, you know, the notion of professional trade association by belonging to our own that supports us and what we do. But it's really important to understand that we, you know, our goal is to make senior move management successful and to make our members successful, but it's also to provide excellent service delivery to their clients. And we help that happen by providing them with all kinds of opportunities for professional development so they can be the best senior move managers around.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to note, I will add this one little piece. There's lots of people out here in the world in calling themselves senior move managers, and we take a little exception to that because we do own the trademark for a senior move manager. But there's lots of people who are doing this kind of work and calling themselves senior move managers who do not belong to NASM. We're not so foolish to think that every senior move manager belongs to NASM. And it begs the question, why don't they? Why do they not want the professionalism and, you know, the oversight of the only trade association supporting senior move management? Is it because they don't want to provide liability insurance, one of our requirements? You know, so you have to, if you're a consumer out there who's thinking about hiring a senior move manager, you really want to think about, are they a NASM member? And I say that really as a protector of consumer rights, not as someone who's, you know, pushing membership in NASM.
And I think that's so important, Mary Kay. I'll share personally on our side, we had a loved one transition into assisted living earlier. We of course met with the directors that were in charge of like the moving into the facility. And they were giving us all sorts of information. And one of them was a brochure, but this is the individual that can help you like physically move or complete the transition if you need help. And they started going on and on. I quickly flipped over the brochure and I saw the NASM like C++ certification. And I was like, you need not tell me anything else. Like, I know they have been vetted like 10 different
We seem to have lost Heather for the moment.
Okay.
So I can tell you the rest of the story, but she might join and finish it herself. But they did actually hire a NASM. Oh, she's
Great.
back. Heather, go for it. Go ahead, continue.
So we did have a NASM professional help our family just because it's that trust and you know what you're getting when you do have that NASM certified.
Well, and yeah, and that's that's the great thing. And I mean, if something does go wrong, and it doesn't happen very often, but if it does, we have an ethics compliance commission who reviews complaints and who, their goal is to obviously make things right with the consumer, with the customer, but also to help educate the member on where they can shore up their own best practices so that this doesn't happen again. So it's not a punitive, I mean, sometimes it could be, I mean, if it was horrible, but I mean, that's never happened. But it's more of a, it's a helping them understand what within their own businesses they can do better to better serve their customers, to make sure that something like this doesn't happen again.
Right. And we really are proud of our code of ethics. We always say it's a living code of ethics, and we tweak it occasionally when a new situation arises that we couldn't have predicted a few years ago. And our members have to sign the code of ethics. And we really, as Jennifer said, we have very, very few consumer complaints. And as she said, they're really not ethical. They're more maybe a miscommunication between client and senior move manager. We've been very fortunate, knock on wood, that continues because our members do hundreds of thousands of moves a year. So, but I really want to emphasize that code of ethics. It's really central.
It's really evolved so much since, the association was founded in 2002. And, I mean, things that were, we never had to worry about employee issues, frankly, back in 2002. They were such small companies. Now, there are ethics in terms of employees and, business to business competition and things like that really weren't an issue when there were 60 members, So, but it's also a great tool for our members to be able to say, why would I hire a NASM member? Because I have the backing of this ethics compliance commission. And should you have an issue with me, there is a place for you to, lodge an actual complaint where, things would be looked at.
Mhm.
So, and again, not that it happens very often, but when it does, we're on it.
Really great.
So it's a benefit for our members to use when they're looking, at different clients, and clients are wondering why I should hire a NASM member over someone who's not.
Yeah. I think that's a really important segue into the next question, is that you all, in addition to giving your members the resources and the certifications, there's so many different educational resources you pull into the mix with NASM, with the training, the curriculum, but then also just, we get the monthly updates, the news that you can use from NASM, and the articles that are included, everything from the Washington Post, the Atlantic. And it's not just you're forwarding us pieces, but you're forwarding us pieces where you all have been interviewed and quoted, because you are, after hundreds of thousands of moves and working with your move managers, you all are a sounding board and essentially experts on the move management process itself, and being able to advise people of some of the pitfalls or some of the things you need, to your point, watch out if you're going through this moving process or downsizing process. And I think it's been, at least for us, fascinating to see how that all comes together in what you do. So that's a very long way of leading up to the next question. But what are some of the most overlooked components of a move that you all have seen over the years? And how do you recommend people address those up front?
Well, I think one of the most important things, especially in senior move management, is the move is actually the smallest part of the job. It's one day, and if someone's moving from a home of 40 or 50 years, and then they're moving into an assisted living apartment. They're generally moving from 1,800 square feet, 2,200 square feet to 700 or 600 square feet. So what they're taking with them, you know, is a small piece, but it's figuring out what goes, what stays, and if it doesn't stay, where does it go? So it doesn't go into a landfill. And if it, you know, comes with the person, how does that fit? So space planning in a 700 square foot apartment, or so it's the move manager. It's as much about what they know as what they do.
Mhm.
It's a two-pronged approach, really.
Well, and I think to piggyback on that is that, you know, the senior move management is really an art. I mean, there are hard skills, you know, you need to know how to space plan. You need to know, you know, how to organize and sort. But the bottom line is that the real art of move management is helping the client part with the possession without parting with the memory. And that is a skill set that is hard to come by. You know, we have movers that want to join the association and say, oh, well, we move people to assisted living. And when I look at their application, one of the first things that I see is that they don't offer space planning. Okay. I'm not sure how you can move an older adult from a 2,200 square foot house to a 500 square foot assisted living apartment without doing space planning. It is so much more than coming, you know, getting to that point where we just pack them, we move them, and we unpack them, and we take the materials out and we leave everything in there for them to deal with. A move manager works with movers. We have some move managers who are actual movers that have moving companies, but I would say the lion's share, Mary Kay, I know you would probably agree, maybe 97% don't have trucks, you know, and so they're really doing full service move management as opposed to, you know, a moving company that says, well, yeah, we move seniors. Well, you don't move seniors the way we move seniors. And that's something that consumers really need to be aware of, because it's a very different level of service.
For sure.
Thank you. I wanted to put that into the chat and really hit that hard, because I think that and there's some, we are mutual acquaintances of Matt Paxton, and that was one of the things that stuck with me in his book, right? When he was talking about the space planning aspects, and I'm sure he's discussed that with you, but like that really hit me. And like, I'm glad that you are going to keep your grand piano. It is vital to you and your passion. How are we going to fit that? You're going to have to make some trade-offs, right? So right. There's something very real. And if you're ignoring the space problem, you're going to move it, you're going to pay to move it, you're going to ensure that move, and then be very disappointed with the outcome. And that's an emotion.
Right. Well, when we all know that, you know, with, you know, relocation stress and transition trauma, which is an actual, you know, psychiatric diagnosis, a move handled improperly will result in major problems, especially for a client that might have the onset of dementia or memory loss, the onset of chronic illness, you know, that kind of stress. As we all know, I mean, when you're ill, stress just amplifies what's going on. So, you know, you want that move to be successful. If you're not handling it properly, the chances of it being successful are slim.
Jennifer, I'm going to pick up on that and interject with a different question. I'm going to break from the pathway. We do hear a lot about what you're talking about with Artifacts. We are touching into the brain health space. Tell me a little bit about senior move managers and what you're seeing and observing and offering in terms of support and training for those who are taking on clients where they have some of those more sensitive issues, like the cognitive brain health issues, some form of dementia, and how does a move manager have to change that process? Can you give us an example, one or two examples of how something about the move process might be different for someone who does have dementia and maybe has a care provider living with them, or maybe they go for external services? But can you give us examples of how a move manager might have to make some shifts in that scenario?
I
Well,
should be a resident gerontologist.
No, the first thing is you want time on your side. I think, a lot of times a family comes in when the house is being sold and mom is moving to assisted living or memory care, and the family comes in and they want to do it all in a weekend. They hire a dumpster, the dumpster pulls into the driveway, and then the kids swoop in. And I mean, these are wonderful adult children who care deeply for their mom, but they swoop in and the weekend is spent just, hurtling big black Glad bags, hefty bags, into the dumpster. And we say, no, 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 no. This home took years to build, and it's truly cherished by the woman who lives in that house right now. And so we have to honor that life, that family's life, that home, by, intentionally going through the home and helping sort through what goes, what stays, and all the rest. And we think this requires time, but it also, the added benefit for the adult children is, they don't have to swoop in. They don't have to use 2 weeks of vacation to clean out their childhood garage. That's why they hire a senior move manager. But at the end of the day, there are no regrets, because the senior move manager has worked with Mrs. Jones or Mrs. Smith. She has spent hours in that home and days. And a lot of times when you asked about, especially someone with maybe some early onset dementia or early stage dementia rather, you want to take your time and really have them understand doing things in haste benefits no one. And so sometimes the little extra dollars that you might spend methodically, organizing the home before anything else, that's going to benefit everybody in the end. But that's the main thing is people with, some confusion and memory loss do need to take things slowly. And then, if it's just early stage dementia, they are very much present often cognitively to be a part of that process. And the move goes so much more smoothly when they are a participant and they are not being placed in assisted living by adult children.
Mary Kay, bravo on that, because I just want to say it's not an accident either that you're saying when mom is moved, because 2/3 of Alzheimer's cases are women, right? And that's a hard stat. And we would love to find out why scientists haven't figured that out yet, why that is. But it is 2/3 of cases of Alzheimer's are women. So it's not accident that you're saying that. The other thing I wanted to say, this is a beautiful point for us to just reiterate why we work, Artifacts and NASM makes so much sense, why we're collaborating, because artifacting to capture those memories in part of that process so that you can manage the things that are not going to go with you. If you're downsizing into that 800 square feet, you're not taking it all with. And it's a lot easier if you create those artifacts and you can still look back and remember them and have them. But you can also be artifacting things that are coming with, but that's part of that process as well. And I think it helps diffuse some of that emotional stress that they're feeling. And that's something that where we see a beautiful synergy with the really thoughtful work that move managers are doing.
Well, we love artifacts for that reason. The fact that you honor the memory in such a, creative and practical way.
Right.
So
And
that doesn't
multifaceted. Between, the videos and the audios and the pictures and the text, any way you want to slice and dice it, it's there. It is a move manager. When we first started talking with you guys, what was that? Probably 18 months ago. I felt very strongly at that point that Artifacts could easily change how move managers work and speak with their clients for this very reason.
She was so excited when I don't know which one of you she talked to, but she hung up from you and called me and is like, I just found something that's going to change the entire industry. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And we just think it's just a super there's so much value in it. There are so few things that have value anymore, and there's so much value in it. We love it.
Well, and I think too, one of the things that sometimes we overlook because we focus so much on the older adult, but the adult children who are experiencing a new normal, if this was their house for, 48 years, you're not going to come in and downsize in 48 hours. I know from my own experiences when my mother passed and we were moving my father to be closer to my family, going through a box of Christmas ornaments first of all, I would have loved to have had Artifacts at that point because she and I were like almost in a bloodbath over some crappy plastic ornaments. And there were 4 of them, but I was like, well, I'm the oldest and I remember all of this. And these were my ornaments. And, this is when we painted them and all of that. But you know what? It would have been great instead of spending 4 hours arguing over a box of ornaments to be able to just go through it and artifact it, share it between the 2 of us and be done with it. So it's, we love how this technology is available and is changing how move managers can connect with their clients and support their clients, by helping them, again, part with the possession without parting with the memory.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. We love hearing that. We love working with our NASM partners and all the move managers that we get to meet with and work with over the years. I do want to just ask a really broad question as we dive into more of that downsizing and moving pieces, but do you have any tips and tricks for those contemplating a move in the coming months? And specifically, we've had a member write in to ask us any advice about what to do with those large media collections.
Well, obviously starting early is important. Depending on what those media collections are, if they are, slides, photos, all of that. That is it's generally the last thing to be dealt with because it's not something that you just can, say, oh, we're just going to throw this box of photos in the trash. Nobody does that. So that, and I'm a victim of that myself. When we moved, my mother had died and we moved my dad up to be closer to us in Michigan, 8 banker boxes of photos. And it was like this project that we were going to do. And then my father unfortunately passed away. And then we had these 8 boxes and my aunt said that she'll take them. She hasn't done anything with them. So that is a huge problem. Slides are a problem. VHS tapes are a problem. The best thing to do is to hire a photo manager or, a photo management company or a digitizing company where you can send this stuff and have it.
And some of our senior move managers have added photo organizing. So you'd want to check.
And we have, and we have industry partners who are, photo organizing specialists. We have an affiliation agreement with the photo managers. There are companies out there that will do this. And that is really the best way. Just getting all of this stuff either in the cloud or on a zip drive or however you want it. That is really the best way to do that.
A tip that I have too is not there. You have a yes pile and a no pile. Do not have a maybe pile. Don't let yourself have a maybe pile because that's always going to be the biggest pile. And delaying a decision does not make a better decision. Just like when you're selling your house, your first offer is your best offer. Your first decision, you only want to handle things once. So be tough, give yourself some tough love, make the decision right then and there.
Right. And she's right. And that doesn't just apply to photos, that applies to downsizing.
Oh yeah, everything. Oh yeah.
If you have a maybe pile, all you're doing is moving things around the room. You need to, there's no maybe, it's either yes or no. And within that no, is that donate? Is that junk? Is that gift? It doesn't mean that there's not a, another, branch down below that, but there is no maybe. You have to just let it go. We all know stuff defines us, but stuff also weighs us down. So, Is it the teapot collection that mom loves? No, it's the memories that were associated where she got, this teapot or that teapot, or, but we have to start to let things go. And a move manager can help you figure out how to do that. Let's pick your 5 top ones, but then the other 20, let's figure that out. Is it artifacting them? Yes. Is it taking pictures of them and maybe making them into a poster that can be in their new their new living environment, or a coffee table book or whatever? And there are lots of solutions out there where you can physically part with clunky.
Absolutely. One thing that I have learned, again, both of my parents have passed away in the last few years, is I'm not sad that I'm taking an entire Waterford collection to Goodwill. I used to fight that. I used to say, no. I remember when my parents went to Ireland and bought each of us a piece, and they did this for many, many years, back when, you couldn't just get it online. You had to actually physically go to Ireland to get a piece of Waterford duty free. And, I fought myself for years, but it was always in a box in our attic. And I finally said, I'm letting it go. I'm artifacting it, and I'm letting it go. And someone's going to have a very nice day at Goodwill today.
I love it. Give it a home where it'll get greater use. And we actually have a piece that I won't talk about too much coming out, but we do talk about this a bit about, let people into the grandma's closet, let them explore and take things that they actually want and will put to good use. This is, we're kind of sick of hearing people say they don't want anything. It's not entirely true that your heirs don't want anything. Do they
right?
know?
No, you're right, but they don't want everything.
They don't
want everything either. You have to be more thoughtful about it. I wanted to pop in one of the questions that came in about how do people handle the documentation, maybe during the move process, the more sensitive documentation like letters. And I can offer that, with Artifacts, we actually get a lot of people writing to us about this too. And people, including my own mother, you can scan them and make one PDF and you can attach them into an artifact. And that's a really neat way, because then you can share the artifact with all your kids and they all have access. With my mother, she was the only person in her immediate family who moved away from home. So she was the only one that had letters from their mother of the siblings. And so she had a record of what was happening at home that the others didn't have. So if you scan those and make it a PDF and make it accessible to everybody else, you can actually share that history and it can live on through others. But we'd love to hear what you all have to say about the documentation side of move management, and particularly sensitive family documentation.
Well, I mean, I think you're sort of kind of spot on. I mean, scanning that stuff in, and then, and also, I mean, obviously checking with your attorney, what kind of material, what you don't want to get rid of anything, especially in the case of death. I mean, if you have to go through probate or things like that, you need to make sure that you have everything that you need. And then after that, you shred the things that are not relevant. But things like letters or things like that, you do exactly that. You scan them, you save them as a PDF. If you're smart, you do artifacts, something along those lines. Some sort of an inventory, program where you can have access to that. But I think that's an attorney client. I mean, what do you think, Kay, about that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Digitize, and then, talk to your attorney.
I mean, anything that has, that needs to have like a notary, or it has a raised, seal on it, those kinds of things, you really can't scan those kind of things. Those are the things that you have to have the actual hard documents for. But then after that, then, do what your attorney tells you to do.
Great. So another question we get a lot that we hear from our members is that I can't imagine having to move. I have too much stuff. What are your thoughts about the elephant in the room, stuff and moving? How do you help people cope with that? We alluded to it earlier, but 2,000 square feet going down to 700 square feet. What do you do with the stuff? What are some of the options? How do you help people deal with the stuff?
Well, there's a lot of options. And that's one thing that a senior move manager, we like to say that they have a Rolodex like nobody's business. You have an odd collection of something. Either they know somebody who can use it, or as part of this large national trade association, they have tentacles out to all, all of our members' connections. So it's a wide swath of content that our members have, and they know just who to hook up for some of these unusual things. So yeah, you definitely, want to look at donation. You want to look at distribution to family. There will be things that obviously do go to a landfill. You try to avoid that as much as possible. We like to talk about repurposing. There's a lot of big brown furniture in America's homes, and Gen X's, millennials, younger baby boomers, nobody wants a lot of big brown furniture. So, there's a whole new industry out there that has rejuvenated this big brown furniture with furniture refinishing and painting and adding, new hardware and using, an armoire that was, in a dining room, for example, suddenly becomes a closet in a child's room or whatever. So there's a lot of repurposing going on, and it's very exciting to see. But donations is a tricky thing. There are so many baby boomers who are trying to let go of a lot of stuff in their houses that many long-term donation places, the Goodwills, the Habitat for Humanities, all of those veterans associations, they're at their peak. We're hearing that they can't take anymore. My own local Goodwill shut down all furniture last summer, and I know they did it in many, many places throughout the country. So, you can't just assume that a school wants your piano, or that the veterans wants, your coffee table and sofa and 2 armchairs. You can't assume that. So that's where the senior move manager comes in. They do all that legwork and figure out where some of this stuff's going.
Right. And to piggyback on that, I think there are a lot of people who think that their stuff is worth more than it is. And frankly, it's not, for that very reason. And I think you also have to remember that, our kids who are in their, 20s, 30s, and even into their 40s have grown up in the IKEA Target generation. They don't have the emotional attachments to furniture. They didn't scrimp and save for that Ethan Allen dining room set. So, they're used to, no harm, no foul. I spent $45 on this bookcase. I'm going to put it out on the street. And if somebody picks it up, great. If not, I don't care. They're more interested in experiences. They are more of a minimalist generation than the baby boomers are. And so there's that to take into consideration. But I also think because there's been so much attention to downsizing, be it, Maria Kondo or, NASM's had a ton of press about downsizing, Matt Paxton and his successes as, sort of being the voice of downsizing. But I really do think that this generation, and maybe not the oldest baby boomers, but certainly as you get down, realize that their kids don't want the stuff. So I think there's more of a realization about that now than there was even 5-10 years ago, because we know, when I take my china out for Thanksgiving, when I really just want to put out like a nice oval chinette, it kills me to think that I registered for that, and now, you get an invitation to a wedding. I can't remember the last time that I saw china, on a registry, because these kids don't want that. They want experiences. They want to go, they want to do, they want to be light. And so there's just such a big difference. But I think there's an awareness where there wasn't before, especially within the baby boomer demographic, that, my kids don't want my stuff. So I have to start thinking about this.
And what we've seen too, Jennifer, is that when you add the story to it, or even adding like additional the history or the meaning behind it, we have heard firsthand from members where that's the turning point. That's what it's, oh, like, actually, I do want that China set. And I'll use myself as an example. My mother-in-law had this beautiful China set, and she attempted to give it away, I think, for quite a while to other family members, and no one wanted it. And we sat down one day and was like, well, tell us the story. And we all thought it was a wedding gift for her and, her husband. And it turns out it was when they were stationed overseas as diplomats in the 1950s. She was essentially instructed by the ambassador, dear Martha, you have to start entertaining for, parties of 12.
Wow.
You need to get a China set. And how do you do that in Africa in 1957? It's impossible. So she had this great story with it. And when we heard the story, it became much more than just, that's a pretty China set, what am I going to do with it? But now it's like, we have to protect that China set because that story is amazing. That history is amazing. Like, even the provenance of how you got that China set is amazing. So I think that we have seen, definitely to your point, like, it's sometimes tough to pass down the stuff without having the why behind it. When you add in that why or add in that history or story, like, it can be a game changer. Not all the time, but it certainly can help to hopefully rehome some items.
Right. But to your point, a senior manager who discovers this story could say, you know what, let's distribute, a place setting to this person and this person and this person. And maybe they put it into some sort of a wall fixture. I mean, there's just so many things that can be done, and move managers bring the ideas, the creativity. It's just so important to capture those memories and those, without, having a 12-piece place setting of said China, right?
I completely agree. And I'm fairly certain my daughter would rather have a plate hanging on the wall years from now than probably the entire China cabinet. But yes, I totally agree with that.
Exactly.
We've got someone, Mary wrote in, do you all find your purchasing habits are different now based on what you know? And what do you coach others to do and not do?
Oh, for sure. I can speak to
This
that.
is her.
I've become more of a minimalist, a baby boomer minimalist, which is not the same as a millennial minimalist, but and I'm not exactly the most popular person at book club because I'm always preaching this, like, let's just, but I also think I've, passed it on to our children as well. They see the value of clean surfaces and, just not saving every paper their child does and all that kind of stuff. But no, I definitely try to encourage people to, I do think a lot of clutter around the house does clutter your psyche a little bit. And I think I think people are a little happier when there's a little bit less. I'm a big less is more kind of a person. And so I do encourage people to do that. My book club members, who are all around my age, we're sort of mid baby boomers. They tell me all the time how much they struggle with letting go. It's sort of an ongoing conversation we have every month. It sort of never ends. And I try to tell them about, artifacts and things like that. And they still, I don't know, they're still like it's like a security blanket. It's like a 4-year-old with a stuffy kind of,
We actually published an article about that today.
Oh, did you?
And the science behind stuffed animals. This is actually something that's been thoroughly researched, believe it or not, and Heather will pop it into chat, but there really is a science to how stuffed animals can calm anxiety. And also there's the tactile, the touch, the softness factor. And there's something to that, right? And that's what we want people to also appreciate. We're not here scolding people, get rid of everything, it's not that. But you have to live with what you keep as well.
Well, and if you really haven't used it, and I read an article recently about the word if, that is just a really tough word, because so many people save things on the premise that they may, if I go to a black tie wedding, I may need this beaded handbag. Well, they haven't been to a black tie wedding since 1977. So a good chance they could borrow a different handbag, use one they have, And we've got to let go of the, if this happens, I will need this.
Or
And-
honoring those we've lost by
Exactly.
keeping so much of what they left behind that it becomes a new burden. We hear this all the time. They don't want to let go of things because it's how they're tributing those people in their family that are gone. And that's, I don't think that, that's something that they have to wrestle with as well, and why they're keeping something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We do
got
have
a
a question.
really,
Oh,
sorry, Helen, go ahead.
we have a really awesome, provocative question. Are you ready?
Okay.
Can move managers replace estate sales?
No. No. Some move managers do estate sales, but there is a gray area in terms of if you're counseling someone to sell something and you're making a profit off of it, where is the conflict of interest? And I'm not saying that there is one, but it's something to consider. I mean, there are some move managers who are estate sales, and that sort of blossomed out of the need from their clients. But, back to the point of what's your stuff worth? Estate sales, I mean, many of them require $10,000 to $15,000 minimums for an estate sale company. So move managers have creative solutions to help their clients sell. That could be through, more traditional channels like eBay, but also online auctions. I mean, sometimes donations make more sense in being able to take the tax write-off. So no, they're very different services. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, I mean, the estate sale could be part of the move management process, but it does not replace the move manager, and vice versa. They both have their places in this space.
Mhm. Thank you, Jennifer. We've got another question from a member. They've got 2 real fur coats from their mom. What can I do with those? They don't want to have an incident on the street.
I would contact someone like The Real, one of the high-end luxury consignments. There's The Real. I think that's probably the best one in terms of, but there's also Worthy. I mean, there are other ones, but I really think that, and The Real has a trust and estate division where you can contact them and they will actually come out and evaluate it and take care of it for you. So I honestly think that those sort of high-end luxury consignment companies are really what you should do with that.
Great. Thank you so
It's
much.
just seeing that, unfortunately, right now, The Real doesn't want fur coats.
Well, and part of that is because it's summer, you
They'll
might want to hold
inventory.
off on that until it gets a little colder. But again, I mean, there are other, and the other thing too, is that if you're working with a move manager, and you're working with a NASM move manager, I mean, that's a question that can be answered through our community forum. I mean, we have those resources for our members where they can, I've got, if you've got a situation that you don't know what to do with, or then you can post it, and there's probably a move manager somewhere who knows of someone who will, take it and deal with it. So that's kind of another benefit of being part of the organization.
The NASM
Yeah, I don't think anyone has been stumped yet. I don't think any of our move managers have come across something that they literally did not know what to do with it. Through their contacts within the association, they've been able to find.
And I think there's a good point here too from Laura. If it's about actually the coat itself and keeping it whole, and maybe, trading in for monetary value versus keeping it for sentimental, but if not, maybe upcycling it and recreating it into something else, stuffed animal, blanket.
I mean, yeah,
Right, and your local furrier could help you with that.
absolutely.
Great point.
Yeah.
Well, and the same thing goes, I mean, we've all seen it probably where, grandpa has passed on and he has all these flannel shirts and we have these shirts made into pillows. I mean, there's lots of things like that can, be done, and lots of resources. I mean, where you could take those, cuttings of the shirt and have it made into a blanket. I mean, there's just so many ways to repurpose But a move manager can really help you, find creative ways to preserve these memories.
And that's actually one of my great finds I want to share very briefly. And we have it up in our Allies and Stuff on Artifacts, as well as an article. There's a luxury design clothing shop here in Austin, Texas by George. And at Christmas, I saw this beautiful wreath. It was multiple rings by Rainbow, and it was made up of objects. So red objects, purple objects, orange objects. So it was this, and so we featured this artist. So she can take all your things and make them into art. So think about when you're downsizing, a lot of the trinkets that have to go by the wayside. But if I ask my mom, like, where did this come from? She'll tell me. She knows where it came from. She recognizes the value of it, the sentimental value. You can take these objects and make a wreath out of it. And as like a housewarming present, you can bring it with you and only display it now and then, right? Or you could have it, a theme one. But we really love the work of that. And being creative that way can help too with some of those hurt feelings of having to let go of things and take them with you in a new way.
I think we've got one more question, Mary Kay and Jennifer, as we're coming up on the hour. But a recent Washington Post article noted that now for boomers, downsizing isn't such a simple decision. Could you share what you're seeing when it comes to boomers and downsizing, and any trends to take note of that you've noticed?
Are you talking about downsizing their home, like their actual home, going to a smaller house? Yeah, well, guess what? There's all kinds of information out there that boomers are actually upsizing a little bit. They want to be the family gathering place. And as we know, the generations that came behind boomers, Gen X and millennials and everything, they are more spread out around the country. They have spread their wings a little bit more than maybe boomers did. And the boomer mom and dad want to have a home that they can all come home to at holidays. And so we're seeing that as people have, come to some transfer of wealth, their parents passed away. The biggest transfer of wealth happened between the greatest and silent generations, two baby boomers, biggest transfer of wealth in the history of the country. And so some baby boomers are a little flush with cash and they are actually upsizing. But your question was about downsizing. And so I just did want to make that point. But yes, most baby boomers, as Jennifer said, they want experiences, they want to travel. They'd rather pay a homeowners association fee, which they've never done before in their lives, and not have to worry about the lawn and the gardens and all of that. They can go on a cruise down the Danube for 2 weeks and come back, and everything's been taken care of, right? So they like the notion of downsizing their home and having a lot less worry, just a lot less. Some of them have come from houses that had two completely separate central air conditioning units, right? Two completely separate heating units, backup generators, and all this kind of stuff for maybe a 3,000 square foot home. And then they say, oh my gosh, we're 75 years old. We want to travel. We want to go see our kids who are all over the country. Let's get a condo. It's
Right.
just,
Well,
it's a release.
And to what you say, I think you can look at your own, real estate in your own areas. Ranches fly off. They fly off the market because people who are downsizing, even if they're going from, whatever, 2,700 square feet to 2,000 square feet, they'd rather have it all in one level, because of, they're looking ahead. So, to her point, this is what we're seeing in terms of trends. The ranch is king. And they're going above selling price. There's bidding wars, even when the whole housing market is slowing down a little bit. That's still, I drive by.
Builders are slow to build ranches, though.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, it is a less expensive house on the exact same plot of land, right? Versus something that can have 2 or 3 stories. So the building association and the builders have to sort of start reacting now to what the boomers are saying about that ranch model.
Yeah. because that's going to become more and more prevalent.
We see a lot of discontent about that here in Austin, Texas, right? It's a lot of ranch homes built in the early 70s in my area in the Northwest, and people sell the plot and up goes a 2-story and it's looking in on everybody and everyone's unhappy, you know? So there's also coding issues, and we're seeing that even in the legislative session now. So it's interesting phenomenon to get people into a home they want to be in and age in place into perpetuity versus what's available on the market and affordable.
For sure.
Well, and we don't want to sugarcoat it. You know, someone who's owned a home for 40 or 50 years, and then suddenly they're going into a condo building where they are sharing walls. They're sharing maybe garage space if it's a vertical condo, right? They're going into an underground garage. You know, this is a real different situation for them. You know, they owned their own plot of land for 40 or 50 years, and suddenly every time, you know, they walk out their front door, they're encountering a neighbor or whatever in a way that they didn't when they lived in the suburbs, right? So this takes a little bit of a mind shift, and not everyone considers that when they are downsizing, that it is really a lifestyle change. It really is.
I think that's a great point to end on, Mary Kay, that it is a huge lifestyle change. And again, that's the importance, I think, of having NASM, having the senior move manager network and the professionals who can help you through that transition, help you from the beginning to the end, and then be there as a resource if their questions come up. It's so important. So we have thoroughly enjoyed the conversation with you and Jennifer tonight. Thank you both so much for your time this evening and sharing your wealth of information and tips and tricks for downsizing and moving. And I personally will go through my maybe boxes this weekend and get rid of them because I am guilty as charged in my last move and I still have them. So that is my homework. But we want to thank all of you for joining us tonight. For those of you that are NASM members and you'll be looking for your continuing education credit, as noted in the email, you can print a copy of your survey or PDF a copy of your survey, and that will suffice for the continuing education credit. For everyone else, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We will be sending out the recording, posting on our YouTube channel. Ellen popped a link in there into the chat earlier. That will be available for viewing starting tomorrow. And we are very excited to next week, our last in the spring series of Evenings with Artifacts, we'll be hosting Lisa Gellis and Lee McWhorter of Howard Insurance, who'll be talking about how do you protect all your stuff. And with that, we want to say thank you again. Good night, everyone. And we hope to see you next week. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.